So, welcome to Houston Habitat for Humanity's core volunteer orientation. Here you will learn about who we are, Houston Habitat's other programs, the core volunteer program, and how to navigate our online volunteer portal. Houston Habitat wants you to know all about us so you can decide whether you want to take the next step in becoming a core volunteer, which is both an ambassador for a mission and a volunteer leader. We need volunteers who want to learn, build, and lead. Please view the whole presentation because we will be including a password that you should remember if you are invited into the fall group, the fall training group. If you're in that next group, then I'll ask you what that code is to verify that you watched the presentation. This is more important, especially if you're watching this presentation once I put it online on the web page, which I'll be doing early next week. So this version of this presentation will be on the core volunteer webpage at houstonhabitat.org. So it is important that you understand what the program requirements are before you say yes to joining. Keep in mind that we'll be posting a copy of the presentation on the webpage at the end of this month or early next week. So you can watch if you're not able to stay during the whole presentation today. I encourage you to write down any questions you have and save them to the end. And you can also email me your questions if you cannot stay to the end. So what is Houston Habitat for Humanity? You will hear the terms affiliate mentioned when discussing Habitat for Humanity with staff. Each city or county that has a Habitat for Humanity is its own affiliate. That is, it's a separate nonprofit from Habitat for Humanity International, or HFHI as they're called. HFHI is our national/international entity that we are bounded together through branding, fundraising in some aspects, housing standards, and advocacy. There are about 5 affiliates in the greater Houston area, so it's important for us to identify that we are Houston Habitat for Humanity, or Houston Habitat for short. While we have the largest service area of the local affiliates and build the most homes each year, we love our sister organizations and often send them our volunteers who are seeking to help in a more local capacity. So Habitat for Humanity is a worldwide nonprofit started in 1976 by Millard and Linda Fuller. The Fullers were inspired to create Habitat after their involvement in Koinona Farms and its founder, Clarence Jordan, who utilized the idea of partnership housing. You can learn more about the beginnings of Habitat for Humanity through the documentary Briars in the Cotton Patch. Habitat's most famous volunteers, Jimmy and Rosalind Carter, became involved in Habitat in 1984, and its international headquarters are located in Georgia. Houston Habitat started in 1987 with the help of Carl Umlin, Reverend Harvey Clemens Jr., and Stephen Fairfield. We've served more than 5,000 families through new home ownership and home repair. We're the host of Super Builds 37 and 51, building that number of homes on each of those projects, which were during Super Bowl season. We're also recognized as a 4-star charity by Charity Navigator and earned the Gold Seal of Transparency from GuideStar. We've built over 1,050 homes and looking forward to build thousands more with your help. So Habitat for Humanity is dedicated to eliminating substandard housing and homelessness worldwide and locally to making adequate, affordable shelter a matter of conscience and action. Our organization was founded on the conviction that every man, woman, and child should have a simple, decent place to live in dignity and safety. In the United States, 46.5 million people live in poverty. Minimum wage is just not keeping up with the rising cost of living, and many workers are struggling to afford decent housing. Decent, stable housing provides more than just a roof over somebody's head. It's stability for families and children, a sense of dignity and pride, health, physical safety, and security, and it increases educational and job prospects. Since 1987, Houston Habitat has partnered with more than 5,000 Houstonians in 14 neighborhoods, including 5th Ward and the northeast and southeast quadrants of the city, and developing 11 neighborhoods from raw land to make homeownership possible. All of our homeowners have low incomes, and nearly all are first-time homeowners. Houston Habitat's programs also address the homeownership gap for people of color. More than 90% of Houston Habitat's homeowners are African American and Hispanic, as are the neighborhoods that it works to revitalize. By increasing homeownership among this demographic, Houston Habitat has been helping to diminish the wealth gap for people of color. So now that you've learned a little bit more about Houston Habitat's history and our mission, let's talk about our programs. The information that follows is intended to be an overview of our programs and not necessarily an in-depth discussion. You can always reference our website at houstonhabitat.org or for additional information or ask a staff member. And there is a slide at the end of this presentation in which all the websites will be listed. So what does Houston Habitat do? Well, we build homes. Houston Habitat works to address Houston's gap in home ownership and the availability of affordable homes by partnering with low-income families to help them achieve home ownership. By providing financial and home ownership training and the opportunity to help build their own home, Houston Habitat ensures that these families have the knowledge and wherewithal to maintain home ownership. You can take a virtual tour on our website at houstonhabitat.org. There's 3 different models, 2 views. It's really cool. You can go from room to room, even the garage, and check out what's inside a Houston Habitat home. It's one of the biggest things people are surprised of when they actually, are able to go inside a Houston Habitat home. They didn't think it was, this high quality of a home. But they are Energy Star certified, efficient, full brick homes. And so, people take really, really great pride in being able to earn their Habitat home. And these are built by amazing volunteers like you with no necessary experience to come help us, because we will train you. And then we'll get a little bit more into the homeownership program a little bit later. We also advocate. Houston Habitat for Humanity defines advocacy as changing policies and systems to eliminate barriers to adequate, affordable housing in order to create a world where everyone has a decent place to live. In other words, while not visible like homes themselves, laws, regulations, and rules about land and building are a major part of housing. Smart policies and systems can promote access to decent housing, while uninformed policies and systems may create unnecessary barriers, making it harder than it needs to find land for construction, build the home itself, or be able to afford a place to live. The essence of advocacy is not accepting shortcomings in current policy, but rather working to shape it in a way that supports people in need of adequate housing. Habitat on the Hill, Habitat for Humanity International's annual legislative conference, is an opportunity for Habitat staff, board members, homeowners, resident leaders, volunteers, and supporters from around the country to unite as advocates for safe and affordable housing. And every year, some of our staff and homeowners participate in Habitat on the Hill in Washington, D.C. Habitat on the Hill 2021, For Home From Home, was Habitat's first virtual legislative agenda conference. You can learn more at habitat.org. We also revitalize neighborhoods. We partnered with 2 community gardens in the Houston area, 5th Ward and Settegast. Community gardens are crucial in supplying food desert neighborhoods with nutritious fruits and vegetables. There are also places where communities can gather to learn how to grow their own food at their own homes. The Settegast Garden has a farmer's market every 2nd and 4th Saturday from 10:30 to noon, and second Saturdays also have the Urban Harvest Mobile Pantry there, which provides additional food and accepts EBT cards. It's a really cool thing that they have with the mobile pantry, where they'll take excess produce from other community gardens and they'll drive around to these farmers markets and they'll be able to sell them there. If you're interested in finding more information about the farmers market, then you can check out our Facebook page, our website's event page, or even follow that community garden's Instagram at Settegast_community_garden. Houston Habitat also partners with community residents, leaders, and organizations to improve the lives of seniors in the neighborhoods which we build and repair. This program helps seniors to stay in their home by providing necessary modifications, whether that's a wheelchair ramp or maybe they need some kind of railing in their bathroom. Those types of modifications, so they don't have to move into a senior center or consolidate to another house or sell their home. They can age in place. We also help people recover from the storm. Houston Habitat helps low-income families maintain home ownership by repairing existing homes. The organization has repaired countless homes throughout Houston, including over 600 damaged by Hurricane Harvey and 90 homes damaged by Winter Storm Uri. Our home repair program also helps delay gentrification for at least a generation by preserving homes that would have been otherwise torn down and replaced with those that are just too expensive for existing community residents. You can find the application for Harvey, Imelda, the winter storm, and even COVID assistance at connectivetx.org. We also restore. So we have 2 restores in the greater Houston area, 2 brick and mortar ones, and then 1 online only store. These are home improvement stores and donation centers that sell new and gently used merchandise to the general public at a fraction of the retail prices. Catering to do-it-yourselfers, small contractors, and bargain hunters, Houston Habitat's restores helped Houstonians recover from Hurricane Harvey by providing materials needed for repair at affordable prices. And profits from these restores are used to help fund Houston Habitat's programs. Like I said, there's 2 in Houston area. One, the larger warehouse, is off of 610 South Loop East and South Wayside. And the more retail-focused one is off of West 34th and 290. And veterans do receive a 10% discount with valid ID. So one of our newer programs is our job construction training program. Houston Habitat is addressing the shortage of skilled labor with residential construction and repair experience in the Houston area by operating this Build Your Future on the Job training program. Unlike many training programs, the Build Your Future program operates on a 40-hour work week, pays trainees while they learn, and uses real, not simulated, work to provide an authentic learning experience. The Build Your Future program supports Houston Habitat's mission by expanding local capacity to repair, build, and rebuild affordable homes, and providing the opportunity for a career in residential construction and increase financial stability to these trainees. So you will see these guys out on the build site. Typically, they'll have a shirt similar to the staff shirts, a little bit more tinted green, and normally have a green hard hat. These guys are learning how to build. They're also learning, landscaping, drywall, many other things that go along with the construction trade. So we are really excited to have them with us. So families are partners too. We do our best to ensure that they earn a safe, decent, and affordable home and keep it. We provide low interest, 0 down payment, affordable mortgages. We select families who live and or work in the community in which the home is being built. So in Houston, families must earn between 50 to 80% of the area median income and be able to pay a monthly mortgage. A Houston Habitat home is not a free home. Many people think that we just give away free houses, and this is far from the truth. While our homes are very affordable, they are not free. Families must also show a need for housing and a history of responsible credit and debt management. To build community, skills, and partnership, Houston Habitat families commit up to 250 hours of what we call sweat equity. That is, they spend 250 hours volunteering with Houston Habitat to help build those homes, learning finance skills, and taking homeowner readiness classes. And we have an online application at houstonhabitat.org. You can also download a PDF version, look at the checklist, put together the packet. We have an overnight drop box here at the office off of 3750 North McCarty. That's the Northeast 610 loop, McCarty and 610. So in case you want to come by on the weekend and drop off the application or after work. So it is available that way as well. We strongly encourage applicants to have all the documents when they are ready to submit the application because missing documents may delay processing. Some of the benefits to these homeowners are that it's an affordable mortgage with no more than 30% of the family's monthly income, so not cost burden. They're building equity through a low interest mortgage. There's no down payment required, and we have loan restrictions that ward off predatory lenders. They're learning home buyer readiness, financial planning, good neighbor and homeowner association classes through these classes. And there's a safe, affordable home in the Northeast Houston area. Another aspect of our program is that it gives families a chance to transfer generational wealth. So right here on the right side, you got Miss Armendaris and her daughter. So many people feel or understand generational wealth is, paying off your house and then you leave it to your kids, which is one aspect of it. But then there's also another one where, these children in these families are learning from the behavior that the parents are modeling. So they're learning how to budget, they're learning how to save, they're learning how to get things off their credit report, all those things, to earn this home. And so those children are also watching this and they're learning these things. And so now that the parent has the skills to be a successful homeowner and maintain their finances, they can pass those skills off to their children. We get a lot of people who are lifelong renters, and so some of these skills they might not have, but once they start into this program and they learn all these skills, they're able to pass it on to their kids, so they don't fall in that same trap of only renting for the rest of their life, but they're looking towards owning their own home someday. So if you know somebody who might benefit from our program, like I said, please send them to our website at houstonhabitat.org to apply or download our application. So where do our funds come from? We rely on gifts from individuals, corporations, foundations, and Restore profits to fund our house building mission. All donations of any amount are deeply appreciated and help us to build more decent, affordable houses with more families in Houston. Houston Habitat's most recently audited financial statement and annual report are available on our website. If you look at this graph here, you can see, most of our funds come contributions and grants, so individuals, foundations, corporations, and then you also have this, this red part of the graph as well, which are mortgage payments and sales. So, these families that are paying these mortgages, they're paying back into the program. So it's going to be sustaining, more low-income families to kind of, rise out of the poverty as well and be able to afford their own affordable home. So that's another aspect of the program that we're really proud of, is giving these homeowners the chance to invest in the futures of other Houstonians, hardworking families. All right, so now that you've learned a little bit more about our programs, let's talk about how volunteers can support our mission. There's 3 ways to volunteer with Houston Habitat. You got the restores, you got those community gardens, and then you got open builds. Remember, you can find all of our volunteer opportunities on our volunteer portal at houstonhabitat.volunteerhub.com. You can also just search Houston Habitat Volunteer Hub, and you should be able to pull it up right from there. It's either the first one or this first 3. So volunteering at the Restore. As I mentioned before, we have 3 restores, but there's 2 online, or 2 actual physical stores. The West 34th Restore, volunteers there will help customers locate their shopping needs and provide some limited donation support. There are 2 shifts, which can be found at the bottom of this slide, and it's okay if you can take both shifts or maybe just one. It's a smaller store, so the maximum number of volunteers here is 2. Then you got the South Loop Restore. There, volunteers will assist the staff with donation support, which includes unloading donations from our trucks, cleaning, pricing, and stocking donations. And there are also 2 shifts. And this warehouse-like store can accommodate 6 individual volunteers or flex to a group of 20 volunteers on just one of those shifts per day. Or you can have them split off to 2 in the morning and then 2 in the afternoon. And then various times throughout this year, we get large donations from businesses or organizations, and then we'll put out a call for volunteers to meet us on the site to help load their donations onto our trucks. The times will vary, but you can generally expect to start around 8 a.m. and be finished by 4 p.m. or sooner if the job is done. Lunch is often provided. We sometimes break these into the smaller shifts like the morning and afternoon. And the number of volunteers needed varies by the size of the donation, but generally from 4 to 10. There's actually one, I believe, on August 5th coming up, and you can find more information on that volunteer portal at Volunteer Hub about where the location is to see, if that's something that you are available to participate in. You can also help us out by volunteering at one of the community gardens. Our Fifth Ward Farmer Street Garden is managed by Mr. Phillips, who has headed that location for about 13 years. That garden is currently in a transition to a smaller size, so having it in about half. We're moving beds and building the new ones right now, which is a really great thing. That people are still coming out, especially during the summer. So we're really appreciative of that. So yeah, building beds, doing some weeding, planting, and harvesting, which we'll do more in the fall of. Right now, we're really building beds out there. They're also looking for volunteer coordinator to kind of assist Mr. Phillips on some of the Saturdays, kind of providing some guidance to the other volunteers on what needs to be done. The Settergas Community Garden is a newer garden that was established in the fall of 2019. Ms. Briggs now manages this garden with support from local residents. The needs there are weeding, planting, and harvesting. Last week, we just built a new compost bin out of pallets, and we cleared a bunch of beds, in preparation for the planting season next fall. Eventually, we do plan for this garden to set up their own 501c3 nonprofit made up of community residents. Farmers markets, like I said before, are on the second and fourth Saturday from 10:30 to noon, and you'll have the Urban Harvest Mobile Pantry on site on the second Saturday's farmers market. You can also help us by help our mission by building out on the build sites. So these are currently located in a neighborhood called Acorn Glen, which is off of Tidwell and Mesa in Northeast Houston. We ask individuals and small groups to assist in home building when these availabilities arise, and these are called open builds. There are 2 build seasons, so we got spring and fall, and we typically take a break during the summer, so July and August, sometimes parts of June as well, because it's just too hot to have volunteers out there building the homes. We build from Wednesday to Saturday from 7:30 to 2 p.m. We have a maximum capacity of 20 volunteers on each site. That has gone up for the fall to 220. It used to be 10 this past spring due to COVID restrictions. But we're always keeping an eye on the situation to see where we need to modify those spots. Small groups are welcome for open builds with a maximum of 5 volunteers per group. We do want the most amount of people to help us on these builds. So smaller groups, it allows for a little bit more varied participation between groups. Volunteers need no experience, but they must be 16 years of age or older. Tasks include mostly framing tasks. So you got standing walls, sheathing, raising trusses, all the way to shingling on the roof. You don't need to bring any of equipment since we'll have everything you need, but feel free to bring your own personal gear if you do have it. We do ask that you wear closed-toed shoes and no jewelry. We don't want to get caught in any power tools if you end up using them. And no offensive apparel, and just come dressed to get dirty. All right. So the part of the program where you've all been waiting for, let's talk about the core volunteer program. Houston Habitat is greatly aided in construction by its regular volunteers. So by committing to the core volunteer program, you'll receive exclusive training, reserved volunteer spots on builds, a uniform, and lots of gratitude. Core volunteers assist staff house leaders on new construction with volunteers or to help progress homes forward. Just as important, core volunteers are volunteers, leaders, and ambassadors. Houston Habitat believes our core volunteers have the potential to be much more than volunteers who donate their time often. They are volunteers who are courteous to others and help when they see the need on the build site. We feel that in addition to volunteers, core volunteers are leaders. That means they are both trainers and safety guides who follow and encourage others to follow the Houston Habitat Volunteer Code of Conduct. Core volunteers motivate others to accomplish tasks while understanding that not everybody has the same skill set or aptitude. Patience is a big requirement for a core volunteer. Core volunteers are also ambassadors to the Houston Habitat mission. They tell others about our programs and direct them to staff or our website when they don't know how to answer a question about Houston Habitat. It takes a new Houston Habitat staff member months to get the hang of talking about all of our programs. So we don't expect you to know it all, but at least know what direction you can point somebody when they are in need. And if you are just looking for more build opportunities, that's great. Please consider signing up for our open builds because the core volunteer program is designed for those who wish to be volunteers, leaders, and ambassadors. So in order to be eligible for the core volunteer program, you must be available for training. So we are looking for those who can commit to at least 6 builds, which will be mostly on Saturdays, and maybe more, if not all the training tasks we're learning, and we'll kind of go over the curriculum in a minute. Can lift at least 50 pounds. So we are building homes. We need you to be able to lift supplies and equipment. And so you won't be lifting everything yourself. We will have other volunteers on site, staff members, and those job construction trainees. So being able to work with a teammate or team members to lift everything, lift really long pieces of lumber, the trusses, and all those types of things is also important. Wear hard hat for at least 6 hours a day. That's typically what the work hours look like. With the 30-minute lunch break, maybe a little bit longer, but just be prepared to wear your hard hat for the most part of the day once you're on the build site. And you got to be willing to get on a one-story roof. There will be volunteers getting on the roof, so that's where you're going to need to meet them and be able to observe and train them and encourage them. You must have the temperament and the willingness to teach others. You also got to pass a background check upon graduation. And all volunteers, including core volunteers, must adhere to our volunteer code of conduct, which you can find the code in the guidebook, which is also on the core volunteer webpage if you need to download it. So our curriculum, which can be found in the core guidebook, mimics the daily tasks for each of the volunteer build days. Using the guide along with Houston Habitat Construction Manual, which we will provide you once you're enrolled, you'll be able to follow it along and know exactly what is expected of you and what you still need to learn. For example, today is the second build day. We learned framing yesterday, so today we'll learn sheathing. And you can view your construction manual and these subtasks to know, what you need to take away from the build day. So before the day is over, so if you're at lunch and you're like, well, looking at my curriculum, I did not cut out any windows and doors out of sheathing, then you're going to come to me or my coordinator, or you're going to go to your primary trainer and say, hey, look, I haven't done this task yet. I'd really like to learn this before I leave today. That way you learn all the things that you need to learn in that day, that build day, before you take off the lot. Because once we stand up all the walls, you're not standing them up again. And we might not have the ability for you to train on that again, that build season. So you might get rolled over to the next build season, which we'll talk about that in a minute. So it's really important that you try to fit in what you can that day. Even if you don't get the hands-on experience, you you should at least know enough to be able to explain it to a volunteer safely and with all the good pointers that you need. The construction manual and guidebook are subject to changes, and we aim to update them after every build season with additional or revised content with feedback from each training cohort. And I will put the new copies of the guidebook on the web page as well. So our build day, core volunteers can work on 3 types of builds, and these are the time frames for each of them. The house builds will be out in the field at an address provided to you on each event sign up. So right now in that neighborhood called Acorn Glen, maybe a little bit next year, we'll be moving to a place called Robbins Landing. So that's a little bit further down Tidwell to the east, where we're building roughly 468 homes. Many of those will be Habitat homes. So in that area, but also other places around Houston. So we will give you the address to those on the event sign up. The Playhouse and wall builds are sponsored builds, so not just anybody could sign up for those. But if you are on those builds to help lead volunteers, they are here at our warehouse at 3750 North McCarty, off of that Northeast 610 loop in McCarty. And we will train you how to do the wall builds and Playhouse builds, so you don't have to have experience before then. So the build day timeline. So our daily timeline generally starts at 7:30 a.m. with the check-in and setup. So you'll check in with me or my coordinator, and then if you get there early enough, you'll be able to help us set up if we're not set up already. So putting up tables, benches, chairs, some tents that might need to go up, and then you're gonna get checked in, and then you can move to the actual build site and help construction set everything up. Putting out hoses, setting all the equipment up for the day. So at around 8 a.m. we will start the morning talk and safety brief, then start building shortly afterwards. Around 11 a.m. we'll break for lunch, but this depends on sponsored catering times. Some sponsors cater while some don't. Individuals on open builds are asked to bring their own lunch. I recommend that you bring your own lunch because your lunchtime may get eaten up by driving around looking for something. The break can be 30 minutes to an hour depending on the construction crew's guidance. After lunch, we'll begin building again to about 1:30 when we start putting away equipment and clean up the build site of personal trash, so water bottles, food trash, anything like that. But the build trash can stay on the site because we'll come with a trailer and pick that up later. So I'd also like to talk about our schedule real quick. And I'll also put this up on the webpage after this presentation, so you can determine whether this schedule is something that you can work within your own personal schedule. So in September, we have consecutive Saturdays starting on the 11th. Then moving into October, the first weekend and then the last weekend. Because what we're doing is we're working around our sponsors' schedule, trying to fill in where the days are not so heavy on those Saturdays. That's really an optimal day for any volunteer really to volunteer with us to build homes. And then you got November, so that first weekend in November. And then you have December. So that kind of wraps up the other build days. So as you can see, there's more than 6 days here. There's generally six main tasks in the core curriculum. There's more build days here, so you can, get more experience if you need it. So when you do kind of decide whether you can do this, don't be discouraged if maybe, you could only do 4 of these days. If you could do the first 4, then that's really great, because we'll always have more work on the back end of a house than we will in the beginning. Like I said, you can only stand the walls up in a house once. But these other days take a little bit longer when you start talking about shingles, when you start talking about decking. So we can train you on those. We'll have more opportunities for those. But if you can do the first 4 or 5 days, then that's great. Go ahead and stay with us. If you feel that maybe this schedule is not going to work for you, that's okay too. If you want us to put you on, kind of skip you this core class, and then we'll catch back up with you in spring, then we can do that as well. All right, so graduation. In order to graduate, you must pass at least 5 out of the 6 build day classes and have most of the subtasks complete. The evaluations are conducted by the construction director and the project manager. So non-graduates, so you went through the whole build season, it's already December, and you didn't get to graduate. You will roll over to the new build season where you can join the next training group. So rollovers, as we call them, that finish their needed classes during that next season. So if you didn't finish this fall, you'll be in the spring season. Will be immediately deemed complete, receive your uniform, and be placed in the core graduate user group. And then those in that core graduate user group can sign up to be house lead assistants to help staff lead volunteers on a build. So that's your ultimate goal, is to be able to just look at the schedule and say, hey, look, I'm able to help lead volunteers on this day, and you just sign up for those. Otherwise, part of the training part of the program is you trying to get in all that training as much as you can. Rollovers will have to wait until the end of the current build season to attend the actual graduation ceremony. But let's say you didn't finish this fall, you needed 1 day so we rolled you over to spring, and then you got that 1 day done. We'll mark you as complete right there. I'll move you over to the core graduate user group, and then you can start signing up to be a house lead assistant for the rest of that semester or the rest of the build season. So at this time, I'm going to give you that presentation password. So if you are invited to this fall training cohort, this is kind of the password you're going to give me to let you know that you watched this presentation. And that password is FS79. That's F as in Frank, S as in Sally, 79. FS79. All right. So before we close out the presentation, I'd like to go over Volunteer Hub. You will need to be familiar with this website to sign up for your events. Please remember to write down your username and password, or use the forgot password feature if you cannot remember it. All right. So if you haven't already, let's go over how to register for an account. First thing you need to do is visit our online volunteer portal at houstonhabitat.volunteerhub.com. Searching for Houston Habitat and Volunteer Hub will also get you to the page. If you have an account, then just sign in, find your event, and sign up. You could also click on the links or the landing pages up at the top in green to get to specific categories. For core volunteer trainees, so those who haven't graduated yet, you can click on the core volunteers link to find your event. So that green link that says core volunteers up at the top. If you click that now and you're not part of that group, it's not going to show you anything. It's only going to show those who are part of the group, the core volunteers, and then what that schedule looks like once it does show up. So let's say you're filling out your account. Then you get to this page. Make sure you click the right boxes here. You're going to click veteran. If you are a veteran, it'll let us know that you are a veteran, and veteran families in our program, our homeownership program, can tap into bank veteran volunteer hours to help them finish sweat equity hours sooner. So if you're a veteran, go ahead and click that box, and we'll put your hours into a veteran sweat equity bank. We got veteran families going through the program. They'll tap into those hours, and they'll be able to finish their volunteer hours requirement sooner. So it's veterans helping other veteran families to finish the program sooner and achieve their dream of home ownership. Checking the family partner or friend of the family box is only for those who are friends or family of other families going through the home ownership program. But you got to be there with your family partner, as we call them. You can't just check the box that show up one day and your hours are count for you, that homeowner or person going through the program. You have to be there, and they have to be there as well. So only check that if you know them. I think if you check that box, there'll be a text box for you to write their name. So leave that one alone unless you are planning to volunteer with that family partner. The next three are also important: garden volunteers, open build volunteers, and restore volunteers. Checking these boxes will put you in those user groups also of the same name and let you sign up for those individual types of events. So if you want to sign up for garden events, you're going to need to check that box. Same thing with open build volunteers. You want to sign up for open builds, you're going to check that box. And what this also does, it puts you on the email list that we use to inform volunteers of new events of that type. So at the end of this month, I get with program directors and program coordinators, and I determine if there's any changes for the following month. And then based on that, we build out the next schedule for the next month. We don't go too far ahead because if there's changes, it's a lot harder to change it in this system and kick people off of what they've already signed up for, and then just changing a lot of things. So we're going month by month just to make sure that we've got all the changes right. And if you do sign up, then you'll get an email saying, hey, look, these are the updates for the following month. Go ahead and sign up at your convenience. All right, so you signed up, you finished registering your account. Now you'll be able to sign up for any of the events you're eligible for. Like I said, again, you can click the links up at the top to view the landing pages. So if you click gardening up there, it'll show you gardening. We've also put it to where if you do click gardening or restore open builds, it'll automatically add you to those checkbox user groups. So you won't have to go back and check those. You'll encounter a couple messages to the right of an event, like right here where it has the green sign up button. It means you can sign up right away for that event. You don't have to do any checkboxes or anything like that, or join codes, which we'll go over in a minute. You'll also see reserved. So right below that one, that event says reserved. It means that this event is only reserved for a group, or you haven't added the correct affiliation to your account. So you want to do open build, you see an open build there, there's some slots remaining, and you don't know why you can't do it. So you're going to want to go to your account, you're going to click your name in the upper right, you're going to click manage affiliations, it'll go back to this page right here, and then you're going to click open builds. Alternatively, you can just click on the link that says open builds when you're signed in, and then it'll add you to that group automatically. You'll also see registration disabled. So for various reasons, the management team has disabled anybody from signing up to these events. You also might not have a join code. So we'll have certain groups have join codes, which on the next slide we'll go over how to enter those. So that'll also prevent you from signing up for an event. Core trainees and graduates do not have join codes because the staff, either me or my coordinator, will manually add you. So if you're invited for this fall program, we're manually going to add you. You need to have an account set up already, and then we'll manually add you to the core trainee group, so that when you do click on core volunteers right there, all of the builds for this fall will show. And then once you graduate, I'll manually take you out of there and I'll put you in the core graduate, so all you see is house lead assistant spots or anything like that. All right, so if you have to add a join code a little bit later, all you gotta do is click your name in the upper right and then click enter join code, and you'll see a text box, and you'll enter the join code there. So why do you need to know some of this information? Because you might be called on as a core volunteer to sometimes assist us in checking in and registering volunteers on the build site. Although we strongly encourage all volunteers to register beforehand, some sponsored volunteers have their own work volunteer portals. So maybe they think that they signed up for us, but they really only signed up on their end. So we'll occasionally ask you for help register those people on the actual build day. And if you can imagine, if there's 20 volunteers per build, there's 4 builds going on, that's 60 people right there on the build. So we might need some help getting those people signed up, registered for an account, and then signed up on the right build. You don't need to know all of this stuff. You don't need to remember all of this stuff. We will have instructions on how to register, step-by-step instructions. You just might need to kind of guide people there. All right, so looking ahead, those who were notified earlier this year by me of your fall 2021 spots will be receiving an email soon, and I'll also be calling to verify your interest. I will remove those who are no longer interested, or maybe they just don't have time for training. This may move some of y'all in the spring 2022 spot up. So if you were in the spring 2022, I sent out that email. I sent out an email to the fall 2022, and then a larger email to those who were past 2022. So with the shifting and people not being able to commit, or just maybe commit at a later date, that's going to move. It's going to move things around. So you might get moved up. Once we've identified this fall's 20 core training spots, I will send out another email update on the status of where everybody's at in the line. We do appreciate the outpouring of interest to help us build affordable homes in Houston, and we ask that you be patient as we work down our list. Please review the core training build days that I'm going to post on that core volunteer webpage at houstonhabitat.org. Click volunteers, click core trainees or core volunteers. Almost all the builds are on Saturdays, but like I said, they're not consecutive as you saw earlier. So kind of check that out, determine whether you can commit to the training or you could commit to most of the training, and maybe you can finish up in the spring. That's okay, but we want to make sure that you're learning all the things you need to learn, enough to be able to help our staff house leads on the build site and properly guide and mentor and encourage other volunteers to help build our homes for our hardworking families. All right, so this is all the websites that we have here.